What's up, everybody? What's going on this week with you, Bear?
High School Harry, I think.
Yeah.
Still High School Harry, yeah. We're getting to the point where we're starting to separate the contenders from the pretenders, especially in softball and baseball. And really, I know you saw a good one Monday night with Stosh and Delavan, and probably two of the top 5 pitchers in the state, I would think.
To the top 10 for sure.
Yeah.
We don't know everybody that's up north and things like that, but I mean, they were both pretty good. And we'll break down some of those conference races a little bit, and probably let's talk a little Brewers. We got the Cubs series this week, so people are going to have their eyes on them, and that's really about what's going on right now.
We're kind of in that in between. We haven't really started any tournament series, and the weather's still, this week's nothing great. So golf wise and everything, we're still a couple of weeks away from kind of getting into their tournament stretch. So
you can break down the NHL playoffs.
I can. My Stars are going to play the Blues, not the Blackhawks. I was kind of surprised by that, but I'm happy.
We'll get to all of that coming up here on this week's episode of Extra Points. Hey everybody, welcome back to Extra Points. This is where we talk about all things local sports around the state. Sometimes we go national, but
sometimes
usually we
do.
Stick around here.
Not much going on nationally.
John Barry on my left here. I'm Eric Schmolt. We're from the Gazette, and why don't we just dive right into the high school scene again this week? For probably the millionth time of this show's history, we were wrong again last week.
Yes.
You and I discussed which team we thought would lose first, Craig softball or baseball, and Craig baseball still undefeated through Monday night. Craig softball split a doubleheader over the weekend with Middleton, so we were wrong again, of course.
Well, and I think when you look at the Cougars, the baseball team, they just keep rolling. I mean, and they've been dominating. I mean, it's not like they're winning a lot of 2-0, 1-0 games. I mean, they've had a couple of tight ones, but for the most part, they're convincing wins. And now they're back at full strength. They're only going to get better.
It seems like almost every game's the same. I mean, they got solid pitching.
It's
they don't seem to have any pitchers that are going to give up a huge inning.
Right.
But they also haven't put up a whole lot of offensive huge innings either. They get 1, 2, 3 runs, 4 or 5 innings a game, and all of a sudden it's a blowout.
And like I say, now you're going to add Chase Nyborg into the mix, and that pitching staff's only going to get better. His bat's going to certainly help that lineup. It's a team that's good and is going to get better. And I think when you look at that sectional, the Cougars are going to be a heavy favorite to at least get a chance to get back to state and repeat as state champions.
Yeah, I got a chance to see him beat Sun Prairie at Sun Prairie last Wednesday. My first time going up there. I mean, that field is pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's nuts.
But, I mean, Craig did, they got an early lead and never really let Sun Prairie build up any sort of big innings. And a different Sun Prairie team, even, I think, than other years where they're just not quite as crisp as they have been in the past, or they don't take advantage of your weakness, or at least they didn't last week, losing to Craig and Parker.
And then hats off to Parker, beating them the next day. And again, the Vikings are playing well right now. They've rattled off, I think, 5 of their last 6, something like that. They're 5-3 in the Big 8. And anytime you beat Sun Prairie with a team that's that young and inexperienced, and really shout out to Riley Grover. I mean, the kid went out and beat what at that time was the second-ranked team in the state, and not a lot of strikeouts, but when you throw strikes and defense makes plays behind you, good things tend to happen.
And I talked about in the story from that game, going into the season, he was like the 4th or 5th pitcher. Maybe he's getting some action in these weeks where you have a bunch of games. Well, now he's been their number 2 starter, and he's really looked pretty darn good.
He has.
Not crazy overpowering, but he gets the job done.
And he's filled in where that spot where they thought it would be sophomore Jordan Bailey, but he's battled some shoulder issues. And I don't think the coaching staff still knows his status, if he'll be able to pitch down the road. But certainly, if Grover continues to get him solid innings, they'll be okay.
They're looking, they're in the top half of the Big 8 and right there in the mix after beating Sun Prairie, I think, right in 4th place. Craig, obviously, in the driver's seat with no losses yet, and they get Middleton on Thursday. That's a big one. That could potentially give them, a 2-game lead, and that'd be a pretty big deal going into the second half of the season.
It really is because, it's at 2 games. It really comes down to seeding as well. And obviously with Parker playing better, it'd be pretty cool if Parker and Craig, they could nab the 1-2 seeds in the sectional, and that way maybe they'd play in that sectional final game and for this city, and it would be pretty good stuff.
The Wisconsin Baseball Coaches Association finally came out with their first rankings of the season, and Craig is second in Division I, right behind Heartland Arrowhead,
who's got about 15 Division I prospects on the team as usual.
Well, we saw how that worked out last year.
It didn't work out last year for you.
We'll see how that keeps going. Division II around here, Beloit Turner number 2. You've had a chance to see them, and they keep rolling along.
They do, and it starts with Ethan Burns at the top of that order, and Nate Loomis and Seeger, and I mean they've got kids that are just hitting the ball, and they've gotten good pitching, and really, much like Craig, haven't had a lot of close games. I mean, they've been dominant thus far. I would say a third of the way into the season.
And receiving votes there in Division II, Whitewater, a team with only one loss, was to that Turner team.
Yep.
Still not certain exactly how much they've been tested outside of that game. I'm going to get a chance to go see them this week. And then they get Jefferson next week, and that'll really determine kind of where we're at in the Rock Valley North, because each of those teams, I think, has one loss. And so that home-and-home series next week looms pretty large.
And I think in talking to Mike Gregory from Edgerton, he a chance to talk to him when he calls in his games, and he said Jefferson's good, but not as good as they've been in years past. He said that doesn't mean that they couldn't, work their way to a state title, because he said they certainly could, but he said they don't have the horses 1 through 9 that they've had in the last 3 or 4 years.
And Edgerton Jefferson this week. It's always kind of a fun home and home. So we'll see how that shakes out as well. I think that's about it kind of around here for baseball for now. In the Lakes, some of those teams that are a little further east and outside of our coverage area kind of dominating the league.
Benzie continues to hit.
For Delavan,
2 or 3 hits, both doubles again yesterday. And again, that guy hitting-wise is as good as we have in this area.
In softball, as we mentioned before, Craig, its first loss of the season over the weekend, 9-8 to Middleton in the second game of a doubleheader. And really just one big inning where kind of a crucial 2-out error. They could have got out of the inning with the lead, and all of a sudden they were down. I still think, Dan Bayreiter probably didn't expect this hot of a start. So he's happy with where they're at. And they get to start the second half of the conference season really this week. They get Beloit, and then the Craig Parker game on Thursday.
Yeah, and I think you're exactly right. I think if you would ask Coach B before the season, hey, you'll be, 10-1?
Yeah.
If you'd be 10-1 after 11 games, I'm sure he would have taken that, because it's a good conference. I mean, Big Eight's certainly, one of the better conferences around, because the top 4 or 5 teams are pretty solid. And they continue to play well. They're getting production all the way through the lineup, and I think that's the most important thing. I mean, I know Kayla Kaufman, again, was big on Saturday in the doubleheader with some ridiculous stats, but really a lot of those kids have played well and have hit the ball well, and Jenna Brand is proven to be one of the top pitchers in that conference.
Yeah, I think anytime she goes out there, you're thinking you're probably going to win.
Yep.
You got to take care of these games like a Beloit. They're playing the day right now, Tuesday, as we're shooting this, but you got to take care of those. As we've seen, they've got a 1.5 lead on Verona or on Middleton, and Middleton lost an early game to East. So it's those games you got to make sure you take care of business, and then they get Verona again next week, which will really we'll know exactly where they kind of stand in the race there.
And Parker, the first time the Cougars struggled a little bit with them. I think it was 5-3 at one point. You covered it, and Parker's got some kids that can swing the bat. I would say if you looked at the Big Eight right now, I got to believe Parker's hit as many home runs as any other team in the Big Eight. I mean, they seem to hit 1 a game. Obviously, for them right now, that inexperience, especially pitching-wise, that's kind of keeping them back right now. But I think the Vikings under first-year coach Steve Heilman are getting better, and I think that's exactly what he talked about, was taking little steps to get that program back to where it was consistent and competitive on a game-to-game basis, and we haven't been able to say that for the last few years.
Elsewhere, like you said, I went and watched Delavan Darien play with Stosha on Monday. That was kind of the pitcher's duel that I thought, maybe not quite as overpowering. There weren't maybe as many strikeouts as I thought there would be, but Hernkar didn't really let Delavan's bats get going and hit them with 6 strikeouts. A big week for Delavan Darien, which was hoping to maybe kind of make some noise in conference. They've got Union Grove, which is the number 1 team. They lost to Westosha, which was the number 2. And this is state rankings,
right,
folks.
Yeah.
I mean, this is
it's the best conference. The Lakes is the best softball conference in the state. Period. I mean, don't even argue it with me, because all you got to do is go back and look at what's gone on the last 4 or 5 years, and that conference is dominated.
And that's probably the only thing that that's tough for Craig as well. You're trying to win a Big 8 title.
Right.
That's what looms at sectionals.
You know what's on the horizon.
Going up against the Union Groves and Wistoshes and Wilmots and the likes from the Southern Lakes. But the Comets, I think it's just a matter of getting their bats going. And we've seen them do it at times, and they just got to do it against this top-tier pitching that they haven't really seen yet.
Well, and the thing for the Comets is, unlike Craig, they'll drop down a division.
Right.
So they won't see the Union Groves. They won't see the Wistoshes. They'll see the still good teams, Turner, McFarland. They'll see those teams. But I like the makeup right now of Delavan, Darien, and I really do think that, come tournament time, with that schedule that they play, they're going to be a really tough out. Not that they haven't been in the years past, but they've kind of been snake bit in that either the sectional semifinal game or the regional championship game. And I expect them to take it a step further this year.
Well, and I think going up against these pitchers that they're going to see this week will help when they drop down to that level because it's still the halves. I mean, it's McFarland, Monroe, Turner.
Yep.
Evansville and Delavan, Darien.
And they'll see Packard but
those pitchers are very good, but they're not these Union Grove and Wistosha pitchers that are player of the year in the state type of players.
And they're just those are Division I prospects. Those are kids that are going to go on and play Division I college softball and unlike those kids from the other teams who, again, nothing against them, but they just don't have the stuff, so to speak, that those kids do.
It seems to me that McFarland is probably going to go in the north. We'll see if Evansville can maybe make some noise when they get their home and home here in a couple of weeks. And Turner's the class of the Rock South.
Yeah, they are.
And those are, it's the same teams we kind of talked about last year and probably 2 years ago, but that's just they've got their programs entrenched right now.
Don't count out the cheesemakers because they're there every year. And, they're a team this year that's putting a lot of runs on the board.
Delavan did beat them 2-0 over the weekend, which I think gave them a little shot in the arm going into this week. They were 13-0 before they lost on Monday. So, and ranked number 4 in the state Division II. So it's been about what we expected. We expected those teams to be in the top 10, and here they are about the midway point of the season. Anything else on the high school? I mean,
I got the Cougar Relays.
Relays Friday.
309th annual Cougar Relays, something like that. But no, I mean, it's a good time down at Monterey. You got Craig and Parker. And it's a fun meet because unlike a lot of invites, it is relays. So everything is done with teams, whether it's hurdles, high jump, the sprints, anything. It's all done as a relay. And it's sometimes you'll see teams stack kids in events, but looking forward to watching the Craig boys in the 4x1. I think they have the 4th fastest time in the state right now. The 4x2 is obviously is right up there. They're in the top 10 state rankings right now. So some good talent going to be on hand. And again, hopefully Mother Nature cooperates. It's a nice night because it's a good event and it's a long-standing tradition and it's run very well.
Like you said, golf's about 2 weeks away. I think the Ashenfeld or the big Parker tournament's next Saturday. So we'll really start to see how those shake out. And the teams around here are starting to post better scores. And, as a Parker, a young team, has shot its best score last week. But you really kind of see where things stand once you get to go up against some of those better teams. Well, and you and I talked about it. I think one of our biggest gripes heading into this week is we've got Parker and Craig going against each other in track and field on the road at Madison East. We got Parker and Craig going against each other in golf on the road. And it's too bad because I know there's a lot of local interest and it's fun to watch. And that's why I say if you get a chance to get down to Monterey this Friday night for the Cougar Relays, it's at least a chance to see the local teams in action. Whereas, otherwise you got to get on the road and go up to Lucier Stadium and watch them compete there. So, obviously they do it for a reason, but that doesn't mean we have to like it. And it's too bad that the Janesville teams don't play each other in Janesville. I guess, I'm sure it's just on some sort of rotation. It's a block schedule, but still, it doesn't seem that difficult to find a way to make it happen. On the Brewers and Cubs this week, I'm sure there'll be a lot of eyes around here on that, and probably a lot of Cubs fans waiting to throw out some jokes or something.
It's going to be interesting. I think Arrieta's going Wednesday night, and obviously coming off a no-hitter, plus he's got that long scoreless streak at Wrigley Field. So interesting to see if the Brewers can muster anything offensively against him. He's just been kind of like Hershiser was, 20 years ago or so, where he's just seems almost he's unhittable. And, the Brewers, I think you and I both probably figure about where we thought they'd be. A couple games under 500. Just the starting pitching has not been great.
Well, that's what I think. To even be at 8 wins going into Tuesday, given the starting pitching numbers that they have, is actually pretty good.
Pretty good, yeah.
It could easily be the Braves, who have half as many wins with the pitching that they've put out there, and it's just been atrocious. And to me, it kind of almost goes back to last year when they had the offseason and they didn't do anything after the collapse of 2 seasons ago. And they just said, well, we're just going to assume that the good start to the year was really what this team was and not the last part of the year. Well, then they showed up and they were terrible, just like they were at the end. And they were just like, you didn't change anything. And you just expected different results. Well, going into this year, they were like, oh, well, we've got all these new guys, but you know what? We got these pitchers and they've got another year of experience under their belt, and we've got, some continuity there. It's like, well, the continuity is that they're not very good.
Not very good, yeah. I mean, Youngman hasn't been solid.
Peralta, yikes.
Nelson's been consistent. Davies, really lack of offense and some poor fielding has hurt him.
You can't tell me that if Garza would have been in there, it would have been that much better.
Any different. It wouldn't. The most amazing stat through the first, a month into the baseball season is the Atlanta Braves as a team have hit 3 home runs. 45 players have more home runs than the Atlanta Braves have as a team.
I mean, they were a team that knew they were going to be bad, just like the Brewers, but I don't think you can expect to be that bad.
How do you sell seats? How do you keep people coming when you've gotten 3 home runs?
I feel like you could close your eyes and swing and have more than 3 home runs.
That's just lunacy. That's crazy. I'm sorry.
So it could be worse.
It could be worse, yeah. Or the Twins, or the Astros. I think the Astros are the biggest shock as far as teams underachieving. They have the worst record in the AL along with the Twins.
And with the Brewers, I mean, we've seen some of these guys, VR even, he's getting on base. He's doing his job. Scooter's been a nice, pleasant surprise. Braun, his numbers are top 5 pretty much across the board offensively.
I mean, if they could take 1 out of 3 against the Cubs, I'd probably be happy with that.
We're at the point where we take 1 out of 3 every series.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, a Cubs sweep in a dominating fashion would...
Another area to no-hitter.
Yeah, would not be good because that would get the bandwagon even more steam. But if we could take 1 out of 3, maybe they win tonight, Tuesday, with Nelson going against Hendricks. Maybe we get a win there, and then
maybe they save Braun up because they're not playing him Tuesday night. They save him up 2 off days in a row so we can tee off on Arrieta on Wednesday.
Let's hope so.
Wishful thinking.
Wishful thinking. Yes.
Anything else on your mind we should say?
Well, again, I know it's over, but hats off to the Janesville Jets. Yeah. Another good season. Just came up short in a couple of classic playoff games where overtime got the best of them.
Bummer for them because it's the second straight year that the Wilderness knocked them out, and the second year in a row that it happened in overtime, and it was double overtime Friday and overtime Saturday, and just couldn't find that one goal that kind of pushed them through.
No. The offense kind of deserted them latter part of the season.
I mean, they never were like a juggernaut like they were last year, but they found, when LaFontaine would give them, only allow 2 goals or less, he would find a way to score 3.
Yeah.
Well, when he even only gave up 2 like Saturday night, and they just couldn't find a way to get that third one through. And same thing with the Blackhawks.
Great game 7, a lot of hitting, a lot of checking, but I was surprised. The Blues had never gotten over that hurdle. They'd lost, in that situation, they'd lost so many Game 7s in the last 5 years, whereas the Blackhawks, the Stanley Cup champs 2 out of the last 3 years. But with this new format, it's a little bit different. It's divisional instead of conference. So you've got the 2 and 3 teams in the North, with the Stars being 1 and the Minnesota Wild being 4, and then you take the Blackhawks and Blues. So it wouldn't have played out that way if you'd have gone by the top 8 teams, but it is what it is, and a great series. And now the Blackhawks will have a long off season for the first time in 4 years, because really when you take all of their playoff games over the last 3 years, that's almost like another season for them. So disappointing for them. I'm a Stars fan, so I'm happy because it's one less hurdle we got to get over with the Blackhawks, but the Blues will be a good opponent. But it's a fun time of year if you're a hockey fan.
I'm on the Blues wagon because of Brian Elliott.
Fine. Yeah, Brian Elliott.
He was a Badger and I was a Badger, so I gotta stick on that.
That's fine.
Jump on that train. So I'll be rooting against you this week.
Okay.
That's about it. No Steph in the NBA playoffs for the next couple of weeks. So I guess we should mention that, or Chris Paul, but it's the NBA playoffs. So we've got about 2 more months to talk about.
Still be playing in July, and Steph will be back from his injury, and Chris Paul will be healed from a broken hand.
We'll touch base on that once we get to the finals, like Bear said in August.
Yep.
That'll do it for this week's show. Let us know what you think by leaving us a comment on GazetteExtra.com or on iTunes or YouTube, or drop us a line on Twitter or Facebook, or email at sports@GazetteExtra.com. Thanks to Kevin McLeod for the music and Dave Vaughn for setting everything up for us.
Being the best player available, according to Ted Thompson. Yes.
He's gonna. We didn't talk draft.
Didn't talk draft. No, we didn't. But that's okay.
Tell me what you think the Packers are gonna do, quick.
Best player available.
I think they're gonna trade out.
Do you?
I don't know. It just seems like a Ted Thompson thing to do. Tom Miller will be waiting there trying to make a page, and he'll trade out, and there will be nothing to put on the page, and Tom will be angry.
Get the Dolphins Ezekiel Elliott, and I'll be happy.
We could talk draft next week after it's all over. We're not.
I'm not that draft savvy.
Not a real Mel Kiper
I don't know much.
So we'll be back here next week. Talk draft. See you then.
Take care, everybody.